So welcome to another episode of the On the Water Podcast. I'm Jimmy Fee. This is Anthony DeiCicchi. Before we get to our guest this week, we're going to do a short recap of Icast 2024. And if you're not familiar with that, Icast is the International Convention of Allied Sport Fishing Trades. It's a 3-day convention that takes place in Orlando, Florida, every summer, right in the middle of July. And we head down there and check out the latest and greatest products that are going to be coming out probably over the next, some of them are available now, some will be available next year. I mean, we saw some that weren't being released until spring of 2025. So a full range of them. And Cheech and I were going to talk about some of our favorites there, some of the Icast, maybe behind the scenes. We won't get too behind the scenes because that's could be a little incriminating.
Might be.
But
Icast is always an adventure. This year was no fun, all work, because we had a full slate. We had meetings booked every 30 minutes. Like clockwork, and it's a lot to take on, but we usually work in some fun.
So there's something called the New Product Showcase at Icast, where all these companies put out their new gear, and if you're a fishing writer, media person, or a buyer, say you own a tackle shop, work at a tackle shop, you have a chance to vote on what you think is the best in each category. And there's 20-some categories that range from saltwater reel, saltwater rods, lure. It's broken down, kind of to fly fishing categories as well. And, that is always my highlight of Icast, is walking through the New Product Showcase and seeing what's new. We've talked a couple times about the winner, the best in show, which was the Penn Fathom electric reel. And also that won best saltwater reel and best in show. Yep. Best saltwater rod was also an electric rod, and this one was a company I'd never heard of before, Dominion Rods, and theirs was the E-Rod. So it was a jigging and bottom rod with an integrated power supply. I thought it was interesting how much that both categories were taken by this electric fishing type stuff. So this rod basically was like a power bank for your electric reel.
Yeah, it's.
I didn't vote for that one.
It's hard to wrap my mind around that, but it sounds pretty cool. I mean, if that makes your reel cordless, so to speak, or not needing a power source, that's a pretty impactful thing. And that's one of the things that, like, the last several years of Icast, it's like innovation, like true innovation. Like there's some years where it's like, I didn't really see anything that I would consider all that innovative. The last kind of big one, you had forward-facing sonar from Garmin. That was like groundbreaking stuff. Like, so when you have those highs, you kind of, that's where your expectations, the bar is set with some of those like really revolutionary products. And I did think that Penn did deserve that kind of a title as best in show because of the fact that they brought an electric reel to market that didn't need a power source.
Yeah, so electric reels, the first time I ever saw, and calling this an electric reel is a bit of a stretch, was on a winter headboat trip out of Brielle, New Jersey, where guys had replaced the reel handle on their Penn Senators with a drill bit, and they had their cordless drills that they were using to spin up the sea bass from 250 feet of water. So they've come a long way from there to now you've got a lithium-ion battery that you're actually powering.
Do a little cardio. Before you resort to that, just do a little cardio and crank a sea bass 250 feet. Come on.
Well, I mean, those were...
Some of the deep water stuff, there's a need for it. And on that electric front, I was pretty impressed with the competition that Pure Fishing or that Penn beat out in the reel market with what Daiwa did on the electric reel front with the Seaboard. They brought an electric reel that was an advancement on, having a pretty successful lineup of electric reels to date. You have the Tanacom, you have some other popular ones, but the Seaboard, not only did it look like the Iron Man of lures with that red and gold color scheme from, like, what is that, Avengers? I'm not a comic guy, but is that an Avengers
does look
character?
Like Iron Man. Yeah, you're right.
Looked like Iron Man in real form, which was cool, but it came with a remote. And I thought the coolest thing about that was, let's say you're out in the canyons and you're one of those big operations where you're trolling.
Oh yeah, dude, you could be in the cabin eating your Lucky Charms, reeling up and checking your bait.
If you're doing other things that captains do when running a boat, and you got a spread out there, and you're maybe looking for big numbers of billfish, and it's a teaser bite. and you're teasing fish up, you can have like 4 of these reels right up controlling your teasers, and a remote is going to control them. So if you need to, like, you know, in the drop of a dime, get that teaser in so somebody can present a pitch bait to it, you can do that from the remote in your hand, which is pretty cool, rather than running over to that one and cranking it in like this over your head. I thought that was pretty cool.
No, that's a good point.
You can jig with that remote. So if you have a few different reels in the cockpit, that say you're, you know, tile fishing or something, deep water, and you want to jig or whatever, you can control that up and down, and you can sync them so that you're doing that with all 4 reels that you're fishing at depth. And they're, you know, the higher end of that spectrum is built to handle the rigors of sword fishing. You know, so I thought that was kind of a pretty cool complete electric package.
Yeah.
What else did you see that you liked?
Moving on from kind of the rod and reel department, I think the most exciting wader I saw was the Simms Flyweight packable waders, which here's some waders that can actually be packed into their chest pocket, basically. And you think of packable stuff, you think of lightweights, you think of very kind of thin fabric, not durable. But these felt like your regular Simms waders. They just had kind of an enlarged chest pocket. They were a little bit lighter, and then they could be packed in. And man, I love the idea of that one. That actually didn't win best cat in category.
No, the Grundens waders won, which were super nice. I have a pair of Grundens from the first iteration. I really like them a lot.
Yes, so Grundens is expanding their wader line. They had the Boundary wader, which they put out over the last year or so. We have a pair of those each, and I've been using those and enjoying them. The Vector is kind of the next one. So think the Boundary wader is their top tier wader, very expensive. These are a little bit less, a little bit, a little bit of a price point, still durable. And these, what I really liked about them is these had more of that kind of Grundens look to them. They had the classic Grundens strap. Like if you've been on a party boat, you've seen the mates in the Grundens bibs. It has the black strap with the orange text saying Grundens on it. That's what these waders have. When I first heard Grundens was making waders, this is what I pictured.
Envisioned. Yeah. I agree with that. Those packables from Simms were awesome. They were like almost to the point where they were so well done that you didn't believe that they were packable, and they pack right into like the chest pocket. And I kind of slept on the whole packable thing because, a couple years ago when AFCO started doing that with like rain gear, the first time I ever unzipped the pack was when it was thunderstorms down in Orlando, and I felt like the smartest guy out of our whole bunch because I'm like, I finally brought a rain jacket, and it was actually a really nice rain jacket. I'm like, no wonder I keep this in the truck.
Yeah, I've really come around on the packable stuff.
Yeah.
It's part of that is that it's come a long way. It's much nicer now than it was, 20 years ago when I first bought it. And it was basically just, it was like those big moo-moos, not moo-moos. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the big, like
ponchos.
Ponchos,
yeah.
There we go.
Moo-moos is what ponchos, was what they call ponchos that guys like us wear, but they're really called ponchos.
So staying with Grundens, they also won the fly fishing technical apparel category they made a wading jacket to go with, they're making that cool. Big push into the wading side of things, the shore fishing side of things. And a wading jacket, it's made of Gore-Tex, so very high, very weather resistant. And a wading jacket tends to be a little bit shorter than your run-of-the-mill rain jacket. So that's because if you're wading, obviously you're not getting constantly soaking and filling up your pockets.
On the apparel side of things, or I guess on the wading side of things, I did really like the Headwaters Sling Pack by Simms. I thought that was really well done. I have another like trend that I've kind of like, oh no, I'll be fine. I'll just stuff stuff in my pockets. And then it was actually Bubba sent in, the newer style sling pack, and I use that a ton. I even bring it on boats to kind of keep a condensed package sometimes.
I love sling packs, and part of that comes from for my freshwater fishing. Part of that comes from like the surf fishing background where your surf bag is a sling and you're able to swing it around in front of you. It's different from a backpack where the sling packs that they designed, like the Simms Headwaters, the new one, you can, it stays right on your back the whole time until you need it, and it swings around to the front. The zipper's on top, and they have a little bit of a workstation where if you need to tie knots or put the lure or fly you're going to tie on next, you can stick some Velcro in there. Really useful things if you're constantly moving and you don't want to let go and stop, put a backpack down, or take a backpack off to redo stuff. I have an old Sims sling pack that's my go-to for
Well
steelhead
worn.
fishing. It is, man.
That thing is a relic.
Yeah, dude, it's still good. It's broken in, well loved.
On the lifestyle side of things, I thought that the coastal layer hoodie from AFCO was awesome. We got some pullovers with that same fabric or quarter zips, and I even wear them when they're too hot because they're so soft and comfortable. And they basically did kind of like a take on that had kind of like the slimline hoodie pouch in front with a hood, and it's just the softest fabric that I've worn. I love it.
You walk through and you're that is the one problem of Icast. You walk through and like, I want that, I want that, I want that, and I would also like this.
Absolutely.
I saw some great jigging reels from both Shimano and Daiwa. Shimano put out a lever drag version of their O'Shea jigger, which we have a lot of experience with catching bluefin tuna. They've got a lever drag version. I talked to Benny Ortiz, who is the kind of the guru of slow pitch jigging, and he was describing the fishing he had done with that before they brought it to market down in Panama. I think it was Panama, maybe it was Mexico, but he was saying that he caught some tremendous tuna on that. He spools it with 20-pound test so he can get deep with lighter jigs. And with that lever drag, you can kind of really fine-tune how much pressure you're putting on the fish there. Daiwa and their Saltiga line put out a conventional Daiwa Saltiga jigging reel. And what I liked about that was it has the auto-engage. So, say you're dropping the jig, that's a star drag reel, so it has a switch. Dropping the reel, getting a bite on the drop. To engage it, you don't have to flip the switch up yourself. You just start cranking and then set the hook.
Yep.
Great feature to have. Daiwa also is putting out, they're expanding on their Black Line series. They introduced that this March, and that is focused on the Northeast. So they put out a line of surf fishing rods, which have a great feel to them. I'm hoping we'll be able to try one of those out soon. I know Matt Hefner, I think, is getting one to use. They feel really nice. They talked to the guys at Grumpy's Tackle in designing that line. So they put out surf rods and then Mojo trolling rods for the Northeast, and they expanded that line this year with some inshore rods, which were a lot of spinning rods, and then one conventional that they said we designed this to be your fluke rod. So it's a 7.6 conventional, medium heavy. I think it says it's rated up to 6 ounces of weight. You could probably push it a little bit, but it feels just messing around with that. You're doing the old like bend it into the carpet at Icast. It feels really nice. Like it's going to be a nice kind of. It's not going to be your back bay fluke rod, but it'll be your like open water 60 feet or more, deeper water fluke rod.
I was pretty impressed with the advancements in lines on the braid side of things. I mean, you had a new one from Suffolk that super thin. It was kind of made for finesse bass fishing, which kind of paired with their tungsten jig heads. That won a terminal tackle category. I thought that was good. I thought that was it. What was the pure one called? It's gonna be in the comments. Oh man, that was an impressive one too. They kind of put that through the rigors. And
I don't have the press release in front of me, but I remember I asked the designer over there of the line, I go, is this just like the Nanafill? He goes, no, it's way different than the Nanafill.
Yeah.
It's very smooth. It keeps its shape, and it is designed for that finesse fishing. And we saw that was one of the themes, the overarching themes of this Icast. If it was, say on the saltwater side, it was electric reels and rods. On the freshwater side, it was gear that's optimized for fishing with forward-facing sonar.
Yeah.
So it was line, a lot of the shaky tail baits where you pair them with a jig head and you have a bait that you're just kind of finesse twitching in front of a fish you've spotted on the forward-facing sonar. That was the main theme in the freshwater side of things.
Definitely.
Before we go and introduce our guests, I do want to talk about the winner in the electronics category, which I actually voted for, was the X-Piece 1, which was a waterproof and floating drone. And the reason that got my vote at the new product showcase this year is because I've been involved in 2 drone
failures, disasters, tragedies,
Titanic situation. I don't know. The one of them I was directly involved with, where I missed catching it and it plunged into the waters of Hyannis Harbor. I heard of another one where it hit the side of the boat and went in. Andy Dobreski, who works with us recently, nearly lost a digit to catching a drone. So having a floating one that gives you a little bit of a buffer when things go wrong, landing a drone on a boat.
Yeah, that was a good one. I mean, you got to kind of round it out with the lures, right? I mean, that's
true.
Everybody loves lures. I mean, on the soft side of things, our our boys over at Z-Man swept the market with Shadtron, which I was super impressed with. So, sticking with the line through concept that they brought to the Mullotron lineup, they did Shadtron, which, use your imagination, it's a line through shad bait, and just the Elastec material makes a great soft bait. They're very durable, and the action and the way that they're kind of layering in their colors, where it's almost got that transparency look to the scales and the underlayer cover colors and the scale. It's really well done. And then on the saltwater side of things, they win with a bait with the best soft lure name of all time. It is a shrimp. Another name for a shrimp is a prawn. They came to market with Prawn Stars, which Z-Man is famous for their naming of baits and colors. And
the color names are fantastic. Like just some of the color names that they have for things are like Baloney is one.
Yeah, Beer Run.
Beer Run is the other. And the Beer Run is actually dynamite color, dude. It's like a light
the
gold.
Deal.
The Deal, yep.
Yep. There's so many. You can go on and on and on. And then back to the forward-facing front. You had some experience with the Krej.
The Berkeley Krej, which is a, KREJ backwards jerk. So it is a jerkbait style body, minnow style body with an upside down lip, and that's designed to be fished in conjunction with forward facing sonar. Berkeley had a couple other baits they put out there to go with that line of their forward facing sonar optimized baits, even some for saltwater.
Yeah,
they had.
Which is coming to salt. That the technology and electronics, you've seen some people play with it already, with some jury rig stuff and some prototype stuff. It's coming for the inshore fishery. It's going to be pretty cool to see that take place. And then rounding things out with the hard lure was Fish Lab with a BBZ hard mullet swim bait.
So BBZ, Big Bass Zone. Bill Simatel is a kind of a legendary big bass, largemouth bass fisherman from out in California. And he does a lot of jointed, triple jointed swim baits. And this is one of them, bringing it to the salt. So it's got saltwater gear, kind of a more saltwater type shape, a little less trouty than some of the freshwater BBC stuff. And then the saltwater hardware on there. So that actually won the category for best hard lure in saltwater. And it was a little lean on the saltwater hard baits category. I think this year, like Rapalo, which we've talked about in the past, had a
Sarda.
Kind of the Sarda, which is a Bonito style, like that fast high speed trolling bait from Wahoo. That looked great, but other than that, dude, there wasn't a whole lot on the saltwater hard bait side that I looked at. I was like, I can't wait to use this back home.
This was a more impressive year on the boats and watercraft side of things. Sea Eagle had a fish stand-up paddleboard, which was pretty cool. There was a local company in Newport, or at least the founders out of Newport, that had kind of like a motorized stand-up paddleboard that was called the iFly, which was really cool. But Wilderness and Bonafide, I think in my mind, like went neck and neck with a fishing platform that probably skews more towards the Sweetwater. And when I say a fishing platform, I'm talking about a 10 to 13, 14, $15,000 kayak. On the Bonafide side of thing, it is a massive, it is the level up from the Titan X, which is a super wide, stable platform. This is under the Bonafide brand, and is it a boat? Is it a kayak? Really can't paint it into one of those two corners, but the way that you can customize it with forward-facing sonar up front, a bow-mounted trolling motor up front, also power in the rear. You can walk all over the thing. Wilderness took that category down with the Tactical Pro 128, which, we've worked with those folks for a long time, and they brought us through how that design came to be, and that was a really cool, wide, stable platform as well. Same customizability with the engine options, the electronics options, nice high seat, kind of a big advancement on just having your run-of-the-mill John boat now, where you can take all the tech that these big bass boats, $70,000, $80,000 bass boats have, packaging it to a car top unit. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, definitely, man.
Yeah, that was cool. But
so let's move on to our guest here.
Switching gears to the guest of all guests.
So, if you've ever thought about what it would be like to just leave everything behind and do nothing but fish, follow the fish. Say you're going to you're going to go and you're going to live on Cape Cod through the summer. You're going to go down to North Carolina in the late fall, maybe down to Florida through the winter. And all you have to do is fish. That's kind of what this guy does.
It's literally what he does.
But the thing is, like, that's all well and good. If you're a trustafarian, you can make that work and you don't have to make a paycheck. He is not that. But he is not that. No. He is what he does. He loves fishing so much. He wants to do it all the time, but also it's his way of life. It's how he makes a living. So he has to sell his fish.
He's an ocean farmer. He's a vagrant ocean farmer that just travels up and down the coast and, turns fish into money and, basically does it on the fly without a known residence and a lot of lure. He's a legend. He is a legend.
He is. We're talking about Captain Jim Travers, and Chris Meaghan and I sat down and talked with him, and we wanted to give a little background on it before we got into this talk, just to let you know a little bit more about Jim. He is, this is the harsh reality. If you want to fish every day and make a living fishing, rod and reel fishing, it is. It's not an easy life, and it certainly takes a character. It takes a unique type of character to do it, and Jim is one of those guys.
The best thing about him, right? It's like, he's just everywhere. When you're around, when you're at the launch, he's just everywhere, and he has the worst timings, and he's a personality of personalities, right? So it's like, everyone calls him the Dixie Chicken or Bird Dog, right? So the joke is like, I got bird dogged and I was late to the tide because he would be talking but if you actually stopped the bus a little bit and didn't just dismiss him like a lot of people do, the dude is a wealth of knowledge. He is a phenomenal fisherman and he's got it down to a science. And we always joke around, he's the kind of guy where it's like, oh, bird dog's coming. I got to get out of here real quick. And he will walk down the ramp until he's submerged underwater and bubbles are coming up. As you're pulling out of the ramp after launching your boat, being like, I gotta go. There's no quitting him, but he's the nicest guy. He'd give you the shirt off his back. And if you actually get to know him, he knows his stuff as much as anybody that travels up and down the coast to fish would. And the funniest thing to me is how we know him here. He's known like that by circles like us in Virginia, in every port.
Oh, yeah.
From north to south.
He's an infamous character here in Falmouth.
Yeah.
And Morehead City, Virginia. There's all these other places where people know of him. And it's interesting. It is the type of thing that I've daydreamed about. Doing that, where all I had to do was just go fishing every day. And the reality of it is it's not this easy, beautiful, rainbows and sunshines. You have to. He said some years, if the fishing hasn't been good, if it was a tough fishing year, he's got to pick up the slack with carpentry work. Yeah. He's also a very talented carpenter, but interesting guy. We wanted to get some of those stories down and recorded for posterity. Chris really wanted to bring him in here. So without any further, unless you have something else.
Here is the Dixie Chicken.
Welcome to another episode of the On the Water podcast. I'm Jimmy Fee. I've got our publisher, Chris Meaghan, here. And this week's guest is Captain Jim Travers. Chris, you and Captain Jim go way back. Why don't you do a little introduction here?
Yeah, so it was funny that I've known Jim probably 20-something years now. And I first got down on the Cape in 92. I think, Jim, you got down here in
early 80s.
Early 80s. And we met pretty early on that way. But how this podcast came to be is I was heading out on Tuesday, going down to Block Island to fish with Joe DiOrio. And I got on the highway, running a little bit late, which is like me. And I got on a brick kiln road. And by the time I hit 151, I was probably doing 75 to 80. And Jim was just pulling on the road, heading out at 2 a.m., 2:15 to go do some fishing. And I said, there's nobody that's got that truck. There's nobody that's got that boat. So I immediately called Jim at 2:15 in the morning. I go, Bird Dog, where you heading? And he goes, where are you? And I go, I just passed. He goes, God, that was you. And so that was him. So Jimmy, I'm so pumped to have you on here. And from here on out, we got Jim B and we got Bird Dog. And he's also Jim, but I'm going to just refer to him to Bird Dog. Before we start, though.
Where does Bird Dog come from?
That was going to be my question. Where does Bird Dog come from?
I hunted a lot when I was younger. My father had a pointer bird dog. And I had a bird dog up until 23 years ago. And I don't keep a schedule, and dogs need a schedule. Okay, so I always have treats in the truck to entice other dogs, and they love it. So, but that's how it came about.
And how about Dixie Chicken?
That was from another Virginian, and I give him, he's bigger than me, hairier than me, and I call him Chewbacca. Okay.
So he reciprocated with Dixie Chicken?
Yeah. So when he started calling me Dixie from Virginia, and we're in the Northeast, and he's also from Virginia, so I call him Chewbacca from Star Wars.
I love it. So Bird Dog is a Virginia Tech guy, just like my oldest son. And one of the things we started talking about the other day, and what really struck me is you were heading out bass fishing, commercial bass fishing at the
Yes,
time.
heading north.
And you had talked about some of the things that you had done in the past, and it just really struck me as I don't think people realize how long you've been fishing, how much you've been fishing up the East Coast. And so, and just walk us through kind of where you started fishing and where you fish all the way up, and then we'll go from there, Jim.
Yeah. I'd say you're from Virginia. You mentioned that. Is that where you started fishing?
Yeah. The Chesapeake Bay and points, Virginia Beach, up the coast a little bit to Delaware. And then in the early 80s, my aunt died that was here. Worked at MBL in Woods Hole, so that house was left to my father, and then I started coming up. And I brought 2 boats up here, a 17-foot whaler and a 21-foot deep V. And eventually I got rid of the whaler because it's pretty bumpy out there to ride around in a 17-foot whaler. And first time I really started striped bass fishing, I had to go to Jimmy Young in Eastman's Tackle. Jimmy, how do you catch, big striped bass? Well, at night, throw heels up against the island. Okay, that sounds good. And just like this man, Chris Megan, he was doing the same thing and knows every rock and every eddy and whatnot. And that was great, especially during a full moon in the fall when the moon is at your back and illuminating the shoreline. You see all the deer, you can see all the foxes and coyotes along the shoreline, and you don't need any kind of help because the moon, you adjust to it. And then when you hook up a big striped bass in nothing water, he knows sanctuary is the deep, and he goes streaking by the boat, and it's this comet trail.
He's leaving a glow trail behind him.
Yeah, glow trail. And then here's your line with a big loop in it, activating the phosphorescence. It was cool. I'm down in Virginia. Oh, I gotta get back.
How about, because Jimmy, I started fishing down there in 92, 93, and no electronics. Bird Dog, no electronics. Sometimes no handheld radio, no lights. And I think I'm past that time where they could actually do something about it, but no registration. I don't think I registered that boat the first time.
I don't know what the statute of limitations is on
What's that tag on your trailer name, did I see?
But Jim, that's how we learned down there, and you quickly kind of developed a love for that entire area, not just the Elizabeth Islands, but the Nomans in that area. And how's that fishing changed for you over the years?
It's gone dramatically worse. When I first got a commercial license, this is a long time ago, you could fish on at least 8 schools of striped bass and get a limit every day. Everybody's struggling right now on the commercial side of striped bass. There's a lot of shorts, slots around, which I think that slot is helping the population. But the population is a massive decline on the whole East Coast. Maryland no longer has any kind of spring fishing for striped bass. They shut it down for the first time this year. Virginia's had it shut down for quite a few years.
Yeah, Maryland, so they go catch and release. They've been catch and release in the Bay, and then they did a no-target season for the month of April. And on all Maryland waters on the Chesapeake Bay, you can't even fish for striped bass.
Yeah.
And Jim, when you say 8 schools, you don't mean just, there's a pot of bass there's a pot of bass there. You mean like this is a biomass of fish.
In a 50, 70-mile radius from home port.
Yeah.
Okay, so trailable boat.
So walk through those, Jim. Walk through those, Bird Dog. You had the Devil's Bridge.
Elizabeth Islands, Devil's Bridge, Gay Head.
Nomans,
Squibnocket. Hooter, West Waskey, they called it Baghdad back then, or South Cape Beach.
That had commercial-sized fish off it
Oh,
in
yeah.
the summertime?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And Sankaty at Nantucket, the Rips of Monomoy.
Selling pigs had
East
pretty
of
much
Chat-
their own
well,
school that way, which was
I
tied
get
to
big ones, but I wouldn't get many of them. Okay, and then you're hanging this size cow. Okay, and they can run you in the rocks and break you off. But a real thrill to hang something that big. I don't think there's anything left there right now.
You still have those schools right now that are like, you saw that off of the east end of the canal all the way down towards, Barnstable Harbor. That school was there for a while.
Quite a few years ago.
That was worked over. And then, what do we have? 3 years ago, you had them off of Plymouth, and you got probably a pretty good school
That
there.
was great. The pot of cold water kept the pogies, Ben
there.
Hayden there all summer long. The bass stayed right with them all summer. And I hooked a tuna there as well. They'd come in, and they'd eat on those school pogies. 25 foot of water.
But you
I just want to back up real quick. So just if you're not from Massachusetts, the commercial striped bass fishery here is there's a rod and reel commercial fishery. Opens every summer in, I want to say probably second week of June now. It used to be July. There's 2 fishing days a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, when the captains are allowed to keep 15 fish a day. And the minimum size for those fish is 35 inches. So
Correct.
when you're talking about a commercial size fish, that's 35 inches and above. And there's a quota that they... It varies year to year. This year, I think the quota is in the 750,000 pound range.
Somewhere in that
I think it
neighborhood.
actually even came down from that. I think it's like just under 700 now.
No, you might be right.
I think it's like 685. I think
But
it's
anyhow,
like
just to give a little
Yep.
bit, as you talk about the commercial striper fishing, I just want to give background on what that actually looks like here in Massachusetts.
But that's changed over the years, Jim. I mean, at one time,
It's poor right now. People are just banking on.
how many years commercial striped bass fishing for you, Bird Dog?
26 years.
And how in those 26 years have you seen it change?
Oh, it was great until they lowered it from 30 fish a day, 95 fish a week to 30 fish a week in 2014. And we had some good years in there, and other years, nothing. And I go blue fishing. I go cunner fishing. I'd do black sea bass, which was a guaranteed weekly good check. Go tuna fishing. This year, I don't think I made $1,100 in 4 weeks or 3 weeks seasons. It's horrible. I mean, here today, gone to Mali. If you're driving south on 95 and see, south of the border, gone to Mali tomorrow. It's just, I'm a day late, dollar short. I was at Gloucester the other day. There was a fantastic bite that went on up there the day before. All big fish. Okay, 2 hours in the car in the morning, no big deal. And, $70 worth of diesel to drive up there, but day late, dollar short. It didn't materialize. And it's going on like that. They'll show up at Salem. I was at Marblehead the second week and caught 7 fish up there. And it just died at 8:30 in the morning and nothing else after that. So
that's been one of the main, I guess, changes over the striped bass commercial fishery is what you're describing when you first came up here and first started doing it. There were 8 schools, which would then spread out the fishing pressure and the fishermen.
Yes.
As the populations declined, the fish have concentrated, and then the fishermen have concentrated. And one of the sharpest examples that I saw of that was the Cape Cod Bay School in, I want to say, the 2010, 2011, that range.
somewhere in there.
When it was right around the time that side scanning sonar became popular, and you would have the boats get in there with the eels, and it felt like every boat, I would go and fish it from the beach, just trying to recreational fishing, and it would look like a small city out there. Every boat was out there, and you would hear tons of fish being caught. But then that really put like how much pressure is on this single school of fish,
Right.
as opposed to back when you're talking about when they were more spread out, and you would have guys fishing Gay Head, you would have guys in Cape Cod Bay, you'd have them in Boston, and now today it's tough enough that you're leaving Cape Cod in July when there should be schools of 35-inch and above stripers
Yeah.
to go all the way up to Gloucester to catch
yeah,
fish.
Yeah.
Along that same line, Jim, what was sad is that, back in, 92, 93, 94, when we started on the water in 96, when we first started and we started working with some of the national accounts would come in, fly into town, and it was just a matter of like getting them out on the water and showing them how beautiful the area was and how the fishing was. And we would take out the guys from back then it was, the group from Zebco, which owned Quantum, that owned Van Staal. We'd take those guys out. We'd take out the St. Croix guys. We'd take out all those. You go down the islands, and it was a matter of like, how many fish do you want to catch over 25 pounds? And you would work from like the Twin Sisters. You wouldn't start before the Twin Sisters. Maybe a little bit at EC Rock, but for the most part, you go straight down.
Shark Fin Rock.
Shark Fin. You go all the way down to the Twin Sisters, and then from there you'd work your way down to Cutty Hunk. But generally, you wouldn't even get past Quick's Hole. You wouldn't get past Quick's Hole because just working Quick's alone between Robinson's, Pask, and Quick's, you'd catch 20 fish, and everything would be over 20 pounds. You'd be throwing live eels into a foot of water, and it was just great. And now, to be honest with you, I can't honestly say the last time I targeted striped bass at night down the islands, and I'm not saying that they're not there, but these are more resident fish now. These are the ones that return to kind of that same water and such. But it was something you said to me the other day, Jim. I called him on the phone at 2:15 in the morning on Tuesday, and we talked for probably a good hour. Because I pretty much made it all the way to Newport. I mean, yeah, and you made it. I made it to New London, just shy of New London. You made it to the ramp there, and but the point I was going to make is that how that fishery has changed, and it was one of the things that you said, and before I put you on the hook for this thing, I just want to state that Bird Dog is a little bit older than I am. And
You're gray. Don't lie.
He's a little bit older than I am. He's been fishing for well over 50 years. And it was some of the things that you said when we spoke that day that really kind of caught my eye on the thing. And it was about the state of the fishery, and for a commercial guy that's been fishing for as many years as you had, one of the things you said to me is, I think we should shut it down. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks with it. And I just want you to expound on that a little bit, is why you feel that as a commercial guy, because I'm not a commercial guy. Jimmy's a rec
Chris,
guy.
I want the fishery to go on for your son, for buddy's sons and whatnot, to enjoy it when the heyday with the great times that we did have. And I could follow them when I go home to visit my mother and Christmas time, New Year's, whatever. I could take my boat down there and, okay, now they're at Rudy Inlet, Virginia Beach, right off the beach, okay? That fishery's done. They aren't there anymore. They're not at Oregon Inlet, North Carolina.
So I used to do that. Back when I was in college, I would run down south in the wintertime to fish from the surf in Oregon Inlet and North Carolina, the Outer Banks, and there was a great striper fishery there. More often than not, I was on the beach watching the boats hammer them. But once in a while, they would run the beach, and it was a chunk bite, and they were all big fish. Yeah. Like, you didn't see one under 40 inches
it's
down
done.
there. Yeah.
So Maryland shut down. Virginia shut down. Virginia is slot now. Used to take the big ones in the fall, late fall, December. That's slot now. But Potomac River is my, try to find the right word, my gauge. And work suffered in the month of April, meaning I'd be in the creeks at dark 30, getting live herring, take them out on the river, burn through 35, 50 herring in the morning, just drop it down. And then slide into work with one piece of lumber. I had to go to the lumber yard. Okay, drop off the boat and race to the job site. And come 2-ish, I'm just itching to get out of there. I got to go get more lumber. And I'm back on the river till 9 at night. Okay. It was an addiction with blinders on, and that has fallen to the wayside. If some of my friends that I paid forward spots, they're lucky to catch 1 or 2 striped bass in April. It used to be consistent. Great.
Certainly what helped with that, though, was the live herring. There is no bait out there where you have 10 herring, you're getting 10 bites from stripers. Once and rivers up and down the coast, with the exception of the Hudson River. That's the one place left that you can catch and fish live herring as bait. That was I caught the tail end of that. So the early 2000s, I think the mid 2000s is when they started shutting down the herring
2005.
fisheries all over. So I caught on one of my road trips to the canal, I was able to go and live line herring there, and that was right at the herring run. You scoop them up, you cast them out there, and then everyone gets bit. Everglades Boats is an industry leader in premium offshore fishing boats. Founded in 1997 by boating industry legend and former Boston Whaler executive Bob Doherty, Everglades revolutionized the boat building industry with the invention of the ram cap process for one-piece unsinkable hulls. Respected for its renowned hull ride, Everglades builds center console and hybrid boats from 25 to 45 feet that make a statement about the status and savvy of their owner. Everglades has received numerous industry awards and achieved an unparalleled reputation for superior safety, performance, and quality. For more information about Everglades Boats, stop by your local dealer or visit evergladesboats.com. Everglades Boats, built for beyond.
It's funny, I bought my house in 94, and I was Falmouth Landing, and right behind me was the herring run at John Parker, literally out my back door. I would just go down the hill, and they were there. You'd go out there with a 5-gallon bucket, you'd scoop 6, and to your point, Jim, if you went out and you dropped 6 herring in there, you'd get 6 bites, and it would, occasionally, every once in a blue moon, you'd get down there, because it was always at night, right? You'd get down there, you'd scoop the herring, you'd go down there at night. I just never forget. I was down at the Trunk River, and I had scooped a bunch of them, and I was live lining a herring, and this one herring in the 5-gallon bucket I couldn't put my hands on, and it was just flying in the bucket. I'm like, all right, I'll take another one. I get down to what I think is the last herring, and this one herring, which is not a herring, it was a sea run brown, is in there, and I had scooped him from the Trunk River. From right behind my house in the Coonamessett, and
So how'd the stripers like it?
No, he got a stay of execution. I let him go. But it was funny because I went to hook this thing, and I'm like, I can't do this.
So Jim, I want to get a little bit more of your background. Yeah. When did you start? You fish for a living?
Well, there are years that it could be thin, even though you have a pretty good commercial season. Still had to put on the carpenter's tool belt in the winter to keep your head afloat, and then work that all the way until just before any kind of blue fishing, which would be the first thing.
Because you commercial bluefish, sea bass,
tog,
striped bass.
But how long have you been doing that? How long has fishing been a major part of how you make a living? Was it before you came up to Cape Cod in the 80s?
Oh, no. You could. It's in Maryland, Virginia. It's a familiar thing. Daddy, granddaddy, son. You're not getting a commercial license unless you're in that little loop. Massachusetts, Paul Diodati, which I blame him for letting too many people into what he called the beginner. I forgot exactly the way he quoted it. I wanted the limited entry endorsement on Fluke, but I was 2 years late on that. They made it limited entry because, okay, guys are going 5 miles from the boat ramp and getting a big check every day, and I'm out. Now you can buy licenses, Fluke permit, sea bass permit, tog permit, and my sea bass permit, what I sell, I had a medical problem last summer, which almost put me under the ground. So I didn't do much of anything. And they're getting big money, $12,000 to sell that permit. I'm thinking, but it is, if there are no striped bass, I can go to sea bass, I can go to bluefish, I can go
But
tuna
you're saying
fishing.
that permit is per fish, or you're saying that permit gives you a kind of a...
It's the ability to sell those fish, and that's something
Yes.
that there are people who make a living getting the permits and then leasing them out throughout Massachusetts. I know that's big with kind of the larger scale, not the rod and reel commercials, but the the draggers and places like that where they will hold the permit but be able to lease it out and sell it and make money.
Sometimes
without
that
putting
permit's got to go with the boat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not exactly cued in on that, but
navigating the commercial regulations is something that I did a course over the winter in February. It was the week my son was born, so I missed a couple days of it. Just seeing what, it's the MRIP course. So seeing how they deal with these captains, kind of hearing their side of it, was really interesting to me. It makes it so much, as a recreational guy, you get your license and you fish, but there's so much more than just going out and fishing on the commercial side of things in terms of navigating all the permitting. But it's a little bit simpler for the rod and reel permits. Like you said getting your sea bass permit is as simple as...
When the striped bass are here in the springtime, call it end of May through half of June, close by, the rips, I really don't fish the rips that much. I call them the tourist fish. Okay, I fish for the big ones in the faster moving water along Elizabeth Islands, if that gives you any kind of idea where I'm at. Okay, and those ones pull you to the gunnel with 15 pounds of drag. Okay, the guys with the little spinning rods, and they catch that 20-some inch. Okay, that's
easy
fun.
now. Okay,
That's fun. Yeah, and I took some guys.
Were you all mono back then too?
What?
All mono on the line, right? It was all mono when you were in those rocks.
I switched to braid in the 90s.
Yeah, I was late on that.
And,
just because of the fact that with the rocks out there, you said that that fish would get caught in 6 inches of a foot of water. Inevitably, it would catch a rock on the way out.
Not all the time, no.
Yeah.
Sometimes he would swim back into shore and go around a boulder.
Yeah.
But most of the time, they know sanctuary is deeper water.
Yeah.
And especially...
Well, I've had them go right under the boat.
Yeah.
Coming back out.
Especially off of like shark fin rock, which 60, 80 foot of water is only a cast away. And those fish go streaking 90 degrees off the beach, straight to deep water, most of the time. Now, I'm not really a guide, even though I hold a master's, 50-ton master's, and an able seaman license, and a takerman license through the Coast Guard. I'd rather not deal with the public to some degree.
We're going to get into that with bird dog.
Okay. But I think it's a depleted fishery. The slot limits, I think, are improving, but it's still a depleted fishery. You got to let them recover and get back to the heyday of the late 90s when there were fish everywhere, lots and lots everywhere. It's not like that anymore. There's just a couple choice spots.
So that was going to be one of my questions for you. If you had to choose, when was the peak? When was the striper fishing here?
I think it was 98. My
98.
favorite. Yeah, I could fish the Potomac River. I could fish the ocean in the fall down there. I could fish up here all summer, catch them, plenty of them all the time. And then 2010, we were off of Chatham. It was unbelievable, easy.
That vertical jig bite. It was everyone and their mother was out there.
Jigs.
Yeah,
just unbelievable, easy. We had a pod that was coming in to the Great Backside. I refer to the north side of P-Town. But boy, oh boy, I've never seen bass move so fast in my life. And I'd have 3 or 4 rods rigged with Sebeals. Hook one, take that rod, put it in the back rod holder. Take the next rod, hook one, put it in the midship rod holder. Hook one, put that in the top rod holder. Get the first one to the boat, second one to the boat, third one to the boat, like a product, because the bite would be about an hour.
So Chris and I were out there for one of those days, and we started out at Race Point. Mm-hmm. We're catching some smaller fish there, and then talked to Captain Bobby Rice, who said, and his exact words were,
Bobby Rice gave me a schooling one time. I'll tell you about that later.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I want to hear it.
But he called us. He said, "You got to get down here. It's a whitewater shit show." And that is like, to this day, like I look at big blitzes and I think of that. But those fish, they were moving so fast. We would get out ahead of the school.
8 miles in an hour.
By the time you'd land the fish, you're like, oh. They would be a half mile away, and you would motor, like throttle down to get in front of them.
Yeah,
and we caught a bunch of big ones on the fly. But you would watch it; they would just giant fish, their big brown backs going under the boat, and then resurfacing on the other side and just bolting south.
When we turned that corner, there had to be 30 boats on them, and nobody was out in the lead. They were just kind of, everyone was hooked up, and they were kind of, the school was moving. And I had the 22 Skeeter, the old one, and we got it way out ahead of them, and we're like, and I remember, like it was yesterday, and this has got to go back 15 years ago. maybe, you know, and
It's
so
like 2010.
we got out ahead of these fish, and Kevin Blinkoff is with us, and he's like, I think we might be too far out ahead of them. By the time we got the fly rod out, by the time we got our gear together, they were on us, and as soon as they were on us, they were gone.
8 miles in an hour.
Yeah. They were moving.
That's flying. Man.
Yeah, so, okay, there was a bite up at Gloucester on Tuesday, and I'm there Wednesday. They didn't show. They could be down at the bottom of Cape Cod. They could be at P-Town. They could be up Newburyport. They could be in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
They can move. They don't just stay idle on a piece of structure. And I've never seen anything like that before, to tell you the truth.
That was something else to see. And one of the things that I've noticed is that, and Jimmy, you touched on it earlier, is that those biomass, you still have them, right? You saw it last year off of the Jersey Shore. They had a fishing fall season like they haven't had in years that way. Backside of
They've had 2 in
Fire
a row.
Island, you know, Fire Island, New York that way, they had them there as well, where it was just one after another for a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe even longer there. And you see those things, but you don't see as many of those biomasses now. You don't see as many of those, like, you know, one here, one here, one here. I think Boston Harbor's had a pretty good bite for a while now.
It's kind of the reports are conflicting in a way, because you'll have a fall run like you had off New Jersey, and my friend Shell Karras, who's been striper fishing since the 1950s, will say that's the best fall run he's ever seen.
Well, they're menhaden in that Sandy Hook bite, and they stay there quite a bit. And there's been menhaden from Montauk, Shinnecock, all the way down to Fire Island, or Sandy, what do they call that? Breezy Point, the end of Long Island. Just schools as far as you can go. And little Ed went out there one day. Oh my gosh. I went all the way to Shinnecock, 25 miles down from Montauk, solid menhaden. And I'm looking, you know, are there any fish on them? No, there are no fish on them. What? You know, with all this bait, there should be tuna on them, there should be bass, there should be blues on them. None. And I'm like, what in the world's going on?
Yeah. So you have these isolated areas of incredible fishing with some pretty big dry spots in between. One of the great fisheries we had in the last few years, and you touched on it a bit, was when all those bunkers settled into Plymouth 2 years ago.
That was great. I love that. Daytime fishing.
We saw you out there.
I went and tried to.
Yeah, my buddy lost his lower unit on Marianne's Rock that day.
I remember. We were right there with you guys.
I tried to chase them down at night, but it seemed like the bunker would move offshore at night and take all the bass with them, which why, as a surf fisherman, bunker are very much a...
Love hate.
It's a staple.
It's like a mixed blessing, let's call it. You know, because if you're there when they hit the beach during the day, it's incredible, but at night they pull all the fish with them. It feels like so, but that year they sat there, and I know. I mean, you were there probably every
I
day?
was tuna fishing up until then, and I got 3 way out at the Regal Sword. That's really a 40-mile boat ride from Yarmouth, and I can't do that 2 days in a row. It's just too tiring. It's the boat ride. It's not fighting the fish. You go out there, you look at your depth find, there's a wolf pack down there, 275 foot. Drop a bait down with a window sash, and boom, you're tight. You got the fish to the boat in whatever amount of time. And it's
the old
early
window
morning,
sash.
time to come in, but it takes a long time to get rid of sell your fish, waiting for a truck, which I found out you're really not supposed to pull the fish out of the water. In North Carolina, they're very, very strict. You have to bring the fish to the buyer via boat. Okay, here nobody goes by that regulation.
Oh, I mean, they'll put the fish in the boat,
Can't put the
take
fish
the
in the
boat
boat,
out of the
take
water,
Take the boat out of the water and go find a
Got
buyer
it.
To the buyer.
to the buyer.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought.
And there are trucks all around from P-Town to Green Harbor, Boston Pier, whatever. And the third fish, the truck was loaded. Luckily, I got a good price on the third fish, but I said, this market's going to get flooded. And I knew those bass were there. I got like 1 day in before there at Plymouth. And I said, well, wait a second. I'm burning up $250 a day in fuel with the truck and the boat to go get, call it a $1,200 tuna check. wait a second, I'm getting 15 striped bass, and I have no fuel burn launching at Plymouth. It's an economic thing, and you get to sleep until an hour before daylight, pretty much. And if you finish at 10 o'clock in the morning, wait a second,
it's a shorter day.
A lot shorter.
The hourly wage is a lot better for that one than,
Yes.
than the tuna one.
Not closing the chapter on the striped bass, but when we were talking, Bird Dog, you were saying if you had a gavel in your hand and you were the guy that made the decision on where this fishery should go, what would it be?
This may hurt some of my fellow buddies out there, but I would be cutting my own throat. I think the charter boats that are in a slip and they're slow down east boats, they can't trailer to where the fish move to. They can't get to the fish that are 30 miles away. It's just you're running the boat the entire time and fishing for an hour.
Yeah.
I think the drastic measure of doing a 1985 to 90 closure would replenish the stock. That means even the wreck guys, the slots, just find another species to fish for. Tuna, bluefish, sea bass. Again, sea bass has been a limited entry for it's pushing 10 years now. So some of the guys that can easily, all you got to do is go DMF and go get a boat license, and it's readily available to go get an endorsement for striped bass. Yeah. Joe Blow, Sam Sausage, right now today can go get a striped bass permit.
Yep.
And there are too many people.
And how much is that running him? $30?
$130
$60?
for the boat license, a $35 endorsement.
Yeah.
It would hurt me, but I've had a long run. Okay. I'm not doing well. I know a person or two that's doing okay. But most
you're not
people
saying
are doing
that.
poor.
You're not saying that because you're not doing well on the fish. You're saying that because you want to see my grandkids and everyone's grandkids catching these fish down the road.
Yeah. And after 5 years, I might be in a wheelchair feeding ducks breadcrumbs. Who knows? So
I'm going to give you more credit than that, Bird Dog.
I'm not being devil's advocate here, but it's just not that simple. We can stop all fishing for striped bass. We can manage how many we're removing. The bigger problem and kind of the tougher thing right now that we're looking at is how many the stripers are putting back into the population. We've had 5 below average, 5 abysmal spawns in a row in the Chesapeake. And
I don't believe that Young of the Year index. I don't believe in it. My index is, let's say, Potomac River is a big spawning river. Susquehanna River is a big spawning river. Hudson's a big spawning river. And they even think the North River right here is a spawning river, okay? Going out there and fishing it, and you're not catching when you used to catch is my barometer. You're not catching. And again, all through the eastern seaboard, it's way, way down. Way, way down. So maybe the slot will bring the population back up. Eventually those may grow, and it may.
But I think you're both saying the exact same thing. In that, Jimmy finished out. It's when the Young of the Year index is so low for so many years, you're just not seeing those fish.
So what we're talking about there is in Maryland, the fisheries biologists do the survey, and I don't know the exact details of it, but they take a seine net at the same place. They've done it every year. Well, to your point, they've done it for over 50 years, and they do a sweep. They do several sweeps, and then they count the number of striped bass, and they use that as a gauge for the future abundance of stripers. And let's say in 1996, which it was one of the peak years. 2002 was a peak year. And then you can see those fish kind of make their way through, as schoolies. So it's 1996 fish would have started migrating around 98, 99 as smaller ones. Kind of coincides with the boom of saltwater fly fishing for schoolie striped bass. We've seen more recently, 2015 was a good year. And those fish right now are the ones that we're seeing the abundant slot size fish. But since then, they haven't recorded an abundant spawn with that, and you haven't, and it could be a little of a self-fulfilling prophecy that people see that and they're like, oh, well, I'm not seeing any schoolies, maybe they're more sensitive to it. but it seems to have been, over the 50 years, a fairly reliable way to predict striped bass abundance.
Help me with this, Jimmy. I believe nitrogen and these beautiful mansions on the water in the building boom, waterfront property, and they got lawn care, and nitrogen goes on that beautiful green grass. Here on Cape Cod, same thing. The leaching into the water, the eelgrass dead, which is the start of the ecosystem. You know, little tiny crustaceans to bigger. A lot of places are getting people to tie into the sewage system from their cesspool, okay? And I think that's a huge problem. I think. What's your take?
No, habitat is absolutely a major problem. Eelgrass is one of those, eelgrass fields or those habitats. Go down to Florida and you talk to those guys about the fisheries they've lost with all their water problems with Okeechobee. They lose the turtle grass.
Which comes into Stuart, Florida to the, which river is that?
St. Lucie.
St. Lucie. And they have to dump it, and it's all brown water, and the eelgrass grows.
I was down there a month ago, and
it's dead.
On one side, it looks like a milkshake, and the other side is when the incoming tide is clear.
But you lose that habitat, and then you're right. It is.
But there's a lot of factors, Jimmy. There's a lot of factors. How much rain you're going to get. It's a death by. And here's the thing. I don't want to beat this. This is going to be something that's going to be going on for a long time. I just thought, in talking to you the other day for over an hour, that it was just something really interesting. A guy that's been commercial fishing as long as you have, I just don't generally hear that. Although I will say, I will add to that, and you probably heard it as well, Bird Dog, how many commercial guys I do know that says, if they gave it up, I would give it up. But while it's still there, I'm going to keep fishing it.
The mentality is that quota is going to get filled regardless, and I understand that.
Yep.
I understand that, but that's what I've always heard is that 750, as much as possible of that quota is going to get filled with me or without.
Without, that's exactly.
So if I don't catch them, somebody else.
Not that long ago, the quota didn't get filled.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
4 or 5 years ago.
2 years ago, it didn't get filled.
Okay.
So 2 years ago.
There's a barometer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
The people at Z-Man Fishing have been dedicated to ignoring the book on traditional lure making, instead setting out to create truly category-defining lures, soft baits, and jig systems that simply catch fish. At Z-Man, authentic innovation remains a badge of honor, recognized and admired by countless fans worldwide. I'm one of those fans. I've fished countless Z-Man products in both fresh and salt, from their chatterbaits to their soft plastics made from a material they call Elastec. Some of the most naturally acting, durable soft baits I've ever fished. I've caught PBs on their smallest baits, like on a massive brown trout, choked a micro finesse TRD while targeting smallies, to hooking giant tarpon and redfish on their diesel minnows, which are also phenomenal striper baits. The best part is, when bluefish show up, they'll hold up to them too. Give them a look at zmanfishing.com or ask for them at your local shop.
Jimmy, what are you running for a boat? 23 sea craft?
I have a 23 sea craft and a 26 Stamus.
It's amazing how many 23 sea crafts
Still
are
out
just
there.
absolute
They're everywhere. I
workhorses.
saw a half a dozen up there at Gloucester the other day.
Great boats, and they never die.
But I'm not a tuna fisherman. I go occasionally, okay? But when everything quota's filled here, it's the end of the season, I want something to do. And I have a Florida commercial license with a restricted species endorsement. Never made any money on Spanish mackerel down out of Stuart, Florida. So
What do you get per pound for them generally?
$1.50 a pound.
That's a lot of Spanish mackerel to make a
There's some
decent
guys bringing in 1,500 pounds a day.
on rod and reel.
Well, they do a combination. They throw kind of a cast net, but it's really a gill net with a casting aspect to it. And then that's when they're schooled up real tight first thing in the morning. And then they'll move over to rod and reeling and chumming them with glass minnows. But those guys that live down there get those glass minnows and stockpile them in their freezer in September. Well, I don't get down there until December, and they got the advantage. I go to the store, pay $8 for a box of glass minnows, and you need gazillion times more than that to get them to the boat and have a big number behind you. But so anyways, I stop in North Carolina. It's temperate weather, 55 degrees. That's fine by me. Put on pants, put on socks, put on shoes, and have a jacket. Okay. When you go to Florida, be prepared. It gets hot there in December, January, February. I start moving out of there at the end of February, beginning of March.
So you really run the whole coast as far as fishing?
I've been in almost every port. I do get paid well on a fish down in North Carolina.
But paid well is what, $12, $13 a pound?
Yes. I've had one $6, $7 fish, but I don't catch that much. I pick my days. I'm old. I can't go out there at 4-footers and get beat up.
So the one thing I've heard about the North Carolina fishery though is the inlets, is the treachery of getting
That's
out through
Oregon
those inlets.
Inlet.
So further south, it's a little bit more.
Well, 2 years ago, the Gulf Stream pushed up against Ocracoke, Hatteras, Drum Inlet. The pogies were right on the beach all December, all January, all February. Okay, bait, boom, come out of the inlet, turn right to the left. There's your bait. And if you wanted to go 4 miles off to, and I didn't know this at the time, 4 Mile Rock was inundated with bluefish. So you could fish the bluefish, you could fish the pogie. I was a little lazy, and because it's very tricky coming out of Drum Inlet, I was late for the party. And really, tuna fishing, you want your baits in the water at the beginning of gray in the sky in the morning. And I'm showing up there as the sun's coming over the horizon, okay? Just laziness, okay? Blame it on me. But I'm starting to say, get your ass in gear quicker and get out there and have your bait at first gray in the sky and get the baits in the water immediately, because that's where the majority of the bites on tuna are, is that first gray in the sky bite. But running no distance off the beach is great. Now, this past season, the Gulf Stream didn't move in as close, and the bluefish were 20 miles off of the inlet there at Morehead City. Had to go across the shoals, that's 11 miles, then go another 9 miles to some of the wrecks or whatever, and the tuna are with the bluefish. So I like that short run, you know. But that's tuna. We're back on striped bass now.
No, I just thought I thought in general those inlets were treacherous. That's why I would take Oregon River.
Oregon Inlet, Morehead City Inlet's piece of cake. If you come out of Harker's Island, come out, is that Barden Inlet? Right at the lighthouse, that's nothing. Drum Inlet can be tricky. Any east wind on the bottom of the tide, you don't want to do it.
I want to get
out.
Jimmy Fee, I want to get into some bird dog stories. And with that, I'm going to segue over to some bird dog stories, because it was probably going back 15 years ago. Bird Dog and I, we went out, and there was a boat company in town here, Bluefin, and Harry Turner was running it, and out of Rhode Island, and we were given a 27 Bluefin to run, Center Console diesel. I love that boat, and we were heading out.
That was twin Suzuki's on that thing.
Well, no, the 27 we had was, you had that. You
might have had the 33 foot.
You had the 33 foot
diesel.
And we were heading out to do some bluefin tuna, schoolie, troll bite out there. And we knew the fog was going to be as thick could be. And so Jimmy had one job. He had two jobs. To get into some bluefin tuna, but to be our eyes during this shoot, because you had the radar, we had nothing. So we were going to run in tandem, and Bird Dog was going to stay right next to us. And quickly we learned, once we got out to Chatham, that right next to you was 50 yards. So once you were outside of 100 yards, I couldn't see Bird Dog to save my life. And
literally living up to the nickname there, being like, go find the tuna for us, go on point.
Well, at least get you to the Regal Sword
Get us
area.
to the Regal Sword. And then once you were to the Regal Sword, all you were doing was out there trolling, because these were like 30, 40, 50-pound blue. They weren't big fish.
Yeah.
And we were out there, and we had an absolute battle. And the only time that I knew that Bird Dog was near was when he was on the radio with that accent of his, screaming like, "Where the hell are you?" And but take it
Hey,
from
I
there,
dropped
Bird
my
Dog.
O's. I'm from Gloucester, Dorchester.
But
Drop that R.
I don't know if you remember that day, but we ended up catching him. I almost got wiped out by a trawler because
Oh yeah, there was one out there that
there was
day.
one out there. There was this trawler, and out of the fog, well, we had a spread out the back.
ghost,
This trawler came by us. I think we missed it by 30 yards.
Yeah.
From it just scooping us up and pulling us down, and we just missed it. And I got to be honest with you, I was so pissed at Bird Dog not sticking with us. Do you remember how that day finished?
It's easy. It's easy to get lost
Oh,
in that
it was-
fog.
it was brutal.
Just the other day, I was running in black fog. And I'm looking at my track line.
Before
I
you
got-
give me this story, do you remember how that day ended?
well, I remember Hairball was out there and got a 100-inch or a 100-pounder or something like that. And it was kind of good visibility at that point in time.
It was in
but-
and out of visibility.
Yeah. It was a rough day as far as visibility.
I want to refresh his memory. He may punch me, but so we were out there and we had lost you for the better part of the day. We finished the shoot. We were on our way back, and Bird Dog goes, "I'm going to drop a couple of spreads out on my way back. I'm going to start heading back to Falmouth." And so you let out a couple of bars, and we came up on the backside in the fog and hooked one of your bars with a gap.
remember that.
Yeah, we hooked one of your bars with a gap, and you were
remember
way
that.
out. It was John Burke from the office, and it was me, and it was Andy Nebreski and Neil Larson. We hooked one of the bars, and I put the boat in full reverse and started wheeling on your bar.
I don't remember that.
And then all of a sudden, Bird Dog goes, I'm tight. And we just pulled that thing forever. We finally let it go.
That's a dirty trick. Yeah, you're right. SOB.
I thought I told you that. We had your bar. We pulled you, and you said, you jumped the line, and you said, I'm getting dumped. We had Bird Dogs. That's how thick the fog was. We dragged them all the way out. We let it go, and then we came up on your side, and you popped off, and you said, I lost that fish, and I think it was because I didn't sharpen my hooks.
Thinking I might have remembered that now, but I don't really remember that.
We dragged your bar for 100 yards and all the back, and then the best part of it was Berkey he had the gaff on the bar, and he just kept giving it head shakes. He kept giving it head shakes, and then we dropped it.
You're a square needle in the arm, my man. You are rough.
Tell me about the fog you just did.
and
Tell me the
play
fog
tricks.
Yeah, that was the only time I gave you.
What's black fog? You were starting a story about.
Zero
Nighttime,
visibility. You
visit
can't
night.
see the bow of your boat
Yeah.
practically. Okay, and we were out in that day, and just the other day, I'm out running around in that black fog. Got the radar on 1/16th mile circles. I'm using the same Ray Marine from 2005, and that's what we're using on that 33-foot boat, which I was familiar with. And I made not a track line, but
Waypoint to waypoint. You would
the
just jump down.
waypoint going through Great Round Shoal instead of going up through Pollock Rip. Once you get through that, and the boat is a straight drive, so you don't want to cross those shoals because sometimes they could be 2 foot, and I don't want to run aground. So anyways, I'm running in this black fog. I keep looking at my track line. I keep maneuvering to the right, 90, then turn back to the left. Now I'm too hard left. Now it looked like a snake line going up my track line.
If you're not on plane in black fog, you can't navigate because there's always a delay with the GPS, and so you think you're doing one thing in the black fog like that, and by the time you react, you're already reacted too far the other way, and then you reacted too far the other way. I had trips down the Elizabeth Islands where I was coming off the shore. And in my mind's eye, I swear I was heading straight out into the middle of Vineyard Sound. And by the time you come up, there's white water and there's rocks and everything's breaking. And you just did a full circle and you didn't even know it.
One time I went into Lackey's Bay. This is back in Cytex. I had Lorance Sea at the time.
And that's not a place you want to be in.
And there's no chart plotting with Lorance Sea. I would, put a waypoint at Gay Head or someplace to head to, and then another waypoint at somewhere near Nomans. But boy, oh boy, I'm coming back up to Elizabeth Islands in the black fog in the daytime, not nighttime. And daggone, whoa, at the last second, those rocks in the middle of Lackey's Bay.
Right in the middle of Lackey's.
And scary. So it's a dangerous thing. around New England, especially where I was off of Salem, Marblehead. I forgot the name of it. It's not Egg Rock. It's north of Egg Rock in Lynn. It's another rock, just a big, huge rock out of nowhere off the beach. And, but I had good visibility the day I was there. But the other day, my track line was like a snake. And I don't like fog, okay?
Jimmy, what's amazing to me is you've talked about places now from North Carolina on up to Gloucester and know all the little local spots, man. You've really...
I've caught bass in... not Newburyport, yeah. Bar Harbor.
So you've done
recreationally.
Have you done stripers every state from Maine to North Carolina?
Not New Hampshire. I haven't gone over into New Hampshire, Isle of Shoals.
That's a really cool spot.
That's a really good spot, but it's not Massachusetts. And, you know, if I'm at Newburyport.
New Hampshire's got they got 7 miles of shoreline, 9 miles of shoreline.
It's very I've gone into the port to get gas in Hudson, which is... is it Hudson?
I think it's port. Yeah, it might be Hudson.
I've gone and gotten fuel in there, but Isle of Shoals is a good place. I haven't fished it.
We used to fish out there back in the day when I was a kid. Even before I came down to the Cape, we would go down there, and it was mackerel. We would just you get on the mackerel bite there, and just you get a live line the mackerel out there. The only thing we used to do is get big pollock out there, the Isles of Shoal. Hey, favorite place to fish? If you were to say, because to Jimmy's point, you know, you fish from Florida all the way up to Maine. Favorite place? If there's one spot you had to fish. I imagine last year, because you discussed a little bit of what you went through last year, and I'm sure that was scary. It starts making you look at, like, what life's important, what's important with life and all those. What's your favorite place to fish?
That's a good question. There's so many when it was good. I'll say in the early part of June, right in your backyard, and I'll say no more, okay? Yeah. I mean, right in our backyard, okay? That's my favorite spot.
Okay. I know where you're talking.
Yeah, okay.
I don't.
Well, maybe you can have a conversation with them.
As a surf fisherman, he's not going to reach it.
Yeah, he won't reach it.
You won't reach it.
Okay.
But it's a guaranteed. And actually,
and you don't have to burn any gas
in years
either.
gone by, lighthouse on an ebb tide was so friggin' good. But I looked at it this year. It was towards the end of the tide, so it wasn't really ripping, rolling there. But I didn't catch anything. I didn't mark anything. But when I was doing charters way back in 2007 or something, having people hold up a big striped bass with the lighthouse in the background, okay, is phenomenal. And, okay, we've been out here 2.5 hours, hadn't had a bite. But, folks, just wait. When that tide turns, we'll slide over there, and it was like clockwork. Boom, boom, all big fish. It
was always the drop in tide there, because and when I came down in '92, I was fishing with Dave Peros, and back then a keeper was 36 inches, and you could keep one over 36 inches. I was a keeper, and the place that I could go from the shore where I know I could catch a fish over 36 inches there was a broken jetty there on the on the north side.
North side.
On the north side, there was a broken jetty there. Out ahead of you, there were about 40 yards out. There's a couple of boulders there. And if you could drift an eel over that on a drop-in tide, it was automatic, you know. I remember running out of eels and throwing a Danny plug out there, and I think I had just enough money to buy the Danny plug. Hooked it on the back of that rock because I was fishing the end of that tide, and put my rod down and swam out to it.
I got something that probably dates you.
I swam out to that thing and took that Danny plug off, and I had to make an angle to come back in with back in on the backside.
I got something that's dating me and dating you. Danny plugs. Have you ever seen anybody put an eel skin over top of a Danny plug?
I think Peros did that. In an article way back in the day when we first started in '96.
That was deadly.
An eel skin over the Danny plug. I think he was the first guy that I saw.
I've seen it one time, but a long time ago, and I've never done it myself.
Yeah.
But I have ran out of live eels, and I was at Sankaty, and I go to Plan B, Plan C, lead core line, tube and worm, And back when Jose Wahebe was still alive and not playing around with those deadly airplanes, he endorsed Exude Worms, which was like Gulp. It had scent in it, in a fluid, and I'd always throw them up in the boat. You don't have to do anything. It'll be good for 2 years, 5 years, whatever. I ran out of eels, and I ran through, 2 packages of the Exude Worms because of bluefish. And I was short. I got a bunch of fish early, 17 fish first thing in the morning. Then I'm bluefish attack and bluefish and get a bass here, a bass there. Okay, now I'm 10 fish shy. I got the tube and worm as plan B. Okay, now I burnt through those Exude Worms, which you put on the back, which the tube and worm, when I grew up on the Chesapeake Bay, it was just a surgical hose, no worm. Okay, when I come here, the worm? Oh, okay. And then I read Charlie Swords' book and Cranny down in Falmouth Harbor.
It's crazy to think that you would just
education.
fish the surgical, just the tube itself, because whenever we fished the tube and worm, as soon as the worm came off, you were 95% less productive.
Oh, yeah.
95%. And
so,
all it took was that, Jim. Boom. And
so
the worm was gone.
finally, when I ran through the Exude Worms, wait a second, I got some dead eels in here chopped by bluefish. Took them and put them on the hook on the back of the tube and worm. It works. It's the scent. You're getting the scent.
A little stink in the water.
It's the scent that I don't know if it's the undulation of the tube, but I believe it's the scent more than anything. And back in the day, in the 70s, I experimented with menhaden oil with cotton balls and jammed it up the tube and worm.
That work?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. So anyways, I'm down there at Sankaty.
Cool. That's pretty cool.
And I used the eels that were dead or chopped, and that got me, and I was late. I'll tell you, I left Saquatucket at dark 30, and it's getting light. And I look down on the deck of the boat, the rod holes. I'm at Great Point. Where are my friggin' rods? I forgot. I turn all the way around, go back to Saquatucket to get my rods. So I'm late getting down there, but I did finish up, and it was that particular day. It took me pretty late in the evening to finish up, but that was
Bird Dog. I asked you
I'm forgetting a lot of things nowadays.
Bird Dog, I asked you where your favorite fishing spot was, and the statement being right here, right in our backyard, is testimony to fishing around Cape Cod and the islands.
What's the biggest striper you ever caught? What's the biggest one you ever
It's
weighed
in the area of where Mr. Chris Megan was the other day. Oh, no. The Hell Bob Comet, the year Tiger Woods won the Masters. 96, was it? And everybody committed suicide out in the bunk beds out in California.
Was that the Heaven's Gate?
Were you alive then?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They
kicked me out of the
This
cold,
is
dude.
how- This is how he references his biggest fish.
My power
I kept
boat,
drinking all the Kool-Aid before they put
my
the stuff
little
in.
skiff with the tiller, which I ran a lot on.
Jimmy
the
still
Potomac
has
River.
his Pumas, though. He still has his Puma sweatsuit.
I'm in a 8.5 Avon inflatable. I can launch right there at Fletcher's Boathouse. It's the Hale Bob Comet year. Tiger Woods Masters first year. And I hang a fish that ate a live herring at 9:30 at night. It ran down river. I'm using a bait runner
It was
reel.
96, you're saying.
95.
96.
96.
What year was
95 or
Hale Bob?
96.
I just looked at it. It's, July 23rd, 1995 was.
95. Okay, sorry, I missed it by a year. Forgive me.
So this fish is
See the
running
gray
down
hairs?
river?
See the gray hairs?
It was. I was just
Okay.
curious for my own.
I haven't had an aneurysm or brain surgery, but yeah, it's going, okay? It's not, I missed it by a year, but not much. Anyways, I get that fish back up current, and the current's pretty strong there. And I pull it over my lap. It's got the distended belly. and it's every bit as long as that, if not longer. That's the biggest bass I've ever caught. I don't catch that many huge striped bass here.
Did you do any measurements?
I didn't have anything to weigh.
Yeah.
It was just
60+ pound fish.
It was in that neighborhood. Okay. Again, I fished your neck of the woods, way down yonder through the hollow over the hills and down yonder, and I've caught plenty of these. Yeah. But that was the biggest fish ever. Here, I call them racers, long and skinny. Yeah. You catch a 50-inch bass and it only weighs 40 pounds.
That's even more dramatic when you get to like Cape Cod Bay too. I noticed that they're skinnier fish there. I think they do a lot more moving. Yeah. You look at what the guys get on Block Island. You've got a 48-inch fish.
Did you mention where's Block Island? Where's that?
Oh, the big fish. I got one down the islands back in the day that it was 49 inches and weighed 38 pounds.
Yeah.
38
They were
pounds.
racers.
Yeah, that's what they were. And it just from the head, it started from the head and just went straight
back. And the picture you sent me the other day, big tail, got length. I didn't see a huge extended belly.
There wasn't that big gut that way on the one we got. Hey, of all the places you fish, you've eaten in many places because I have seen your truck and your boat, in parking lots. I remember one time I think I came up in the back and there was a stretch there that you didn't have a spot. I think you were sleeping in the back of that thing.
You wouldn't believe the years I was selling menhaden to Menemsha on the vineyard. I was living on 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep.
You get a couple hours in the back. You had your back pickup truck rigged up with a bed on the top part and all your gear underneath it, and you had like a board in there or something with a bed, a cot,
memory foam.
Yeah, and I just remember like going by there, and it'd be I don't know what time it would be. I might be coming in, you getting ready to go out, and I'd see you like in the Christmas tree shop parking lot with the boat behind you, off to the side that way. But
I was living. It was the chunk bite. Down Noman's 05 to 2009 or 10. I was doing 6,000 pieces of menhaden to Menemsha, Martha's Vineyard, then doing 3 limits of striped bass.
So Omega Protein had nothing on you, Jim, back then.
Well, the place I was going to, you could walk on them, throw the cast net 10 times, have 1,500 pogies. I can't even lift a net with 50 pogies in it now, strength-wise. 150, it took everything to get that much weight over the gunnel onto the deck of the boat and then ice.
And you bring them over to Menemsha? You bring them over to Menemsha and sell them?
And then I told the guys, look, at 4:30, I'm off this dock. I'm running across Buzzards Bay, Vineyard Sound to Menemsha at 3, and I'll be there for an hour and a half. Then you got to find me somewhere out yonder. Okay, I'll be on channel whatever, VHF. And I sold a lot of bait back then, and plus striped bass checks. Those were good days. I mean, strong days. And now, lucky to get a limit of striped, very lucky to get a limit of striped bass nowadays.
On commercial side.
It's in
Bird
recreational.
Dog, favorite place to eat up and down the coast? What's your favorite place that like
$9.99 back in the day at steak tips. $9.99 steak tips.
Where?
$9.99.
So 99, the 99.
I lived in there. And then when I'm tog fishing in the fall, it takes all day pretty much to get a limit. Sometimes not.
What's the tog limit?
40.
Okay.
There had to be some trading fish for food, though. There had to be, like, some of the different restaurants.
So 99.
The Fishmonger were my first sales down in Woods Hole. And then down in Cape Charles, Virginia, I catch these big red drum. I take them up to a restaurant up the road there, and I trade them for what they called a steak dinner. Excuse me, that cow had been dead for 5 weeks, and it was a tiny little skinny, sliver, for a big red drum that they could sell 50 friggin' meals off.
And all you got was like a 5-week-old steak.
Yeah,
Hey,
and it would be a round steak, not a ribeye.
So 99, you just gave 99 a big endorsement. That was the. But now I think
can't
that's up to
afford them right now.
16.95 or whatever.
I get treated to dinners there, but
There you go.
it's no longer $9.99. It's $21.24.
How about breakfast place?
Wait, if you're listening to this outside New England or even Massachusetts, I've never seen a 99 until I moved up here, and it's kind of like an Applebee's, I'd say.
It's a step up from Applebee's.
Debatable.
Yeah, and there are only about 3 things on the menu that I'll order: the combination steak tip, chicken tenders, and their
Tips
salad.
and tenders. Top notch. Tips and tenders?
No,
Country
tenders
gravy.
from
Go with country
KFC
gravy.
are
You
the
gotta go
best
country
on the
gravy.
planet.
You got to go country gravy on that one.
Yeah, the best on the planet are KFC. They never mess up the chicken tenders.
There you go.
Food, breakfast, I always try to eat before I head out, even though I don't like to eat right after drinking my coffee. I like an hour and a half, 2 hours before I eat. But no, if you're going, drink your coffee, set that alarm clock much early, so let the coffee kick in. Once it's kicked in, then make my breakfast.
Don't head out on the boat unless that coffee's kicked in.
Well,
Could be a long day.
this year I had my coffee early, and this morning, luckily you did have some brew at the ready,
Yeah,
because
we
my
did.
eyes were half slits.
One thing that bird dogs are also known for, I don't know how you do this. I don't know why, how. If I get to the ramp at 2 a.m., you will slide up behind me. If I'm at the ramp at 5:30, you will slide up behind me. And on more than one occasion, I will tell you that I've gone to launch a boat, and people don't know this about Bird Dog, but he's as nice as they come. I was there at the ramp one day. I could not start the boat, and you said, "You got your safety clip?" And I'm like, "Son of a B, I don't have my safety clip."
I remember power
You-
steering fluid.
My power steering fluid was another time out there. My wheel was like turning back in the day, trying to turn my dad's '72 Buick Impala. He needed 6 people to try to turn the wheel, and he goes up to his truck, and this is Bird Dog to a T. He goes up to his truck, comes down with power steering fluid, jumps on the boat with me. We bleed it by turning the wheel back and forth. We fill it up, pop the cap back
Off
on
you
there,
go.
and then to
Those
Bird
bezels
Dogs.
are renowned. There's
Yeah.
a grommet underneath your helm, and that leaches.
That's it. Yeah, that
and
seal goes.
and then it
leaches.
comes down. So I always have that on the boat.
But to finish that day, you gave me that bottle and said, keep that. You're probably going to need it. But I do remember the other time that you popped up there, and I did not. For some reason, the safety clip wasn't on there, so I couldn't start that engine.
I've had that myself.
You know, and you said, take mine. You know what, take mine.
I'm in Boston Harbor. I can't figure out why the boat didn't start.
Yeah.
Did you check that? Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, that's what you said
You
that
feel
day.
kinda stupid.
And
Okay.
you know, I felt more than stupid, but you were kind enough to give it to me. You gave me yours. You met me back at the ramp when I came off the boat that day, and I gave it back to you. Another Bird Dog story, which, you know, when we finished this building where we're sitting here and on the water, I kept all the extra plywood, and I wanted to do a shed out back. And on Saturdays after I'd fish or whatever it
I
was,
just saw the shed this morning. It brought back some memory. I forgot, what was I doing with you on that?
well, so you would stop by after fishing. I would be out there and I'd be working on the thing. And the next thing you know, when I got up on the second, you were doing all my cuts and throwing up the lumber.
Was I?
Yeah, you did. You helped me with the cuts. And you were like, it's got to be plumb. It's got to be plumb, because you've worn a tool belt for many years as a
Yeah.
carpenter. And
I'm more of a finish carper than a framer.
well, you definitely showed it, because you were going up one side, down the other when my cuts weren't good. I'm like, it's a shed. And he goes, if you're going to do it, do it right.
It's a friggin' shed. Nail it.
So,
It's not that house on the
I
peninsula
thought
with
you had-
waterfront view worth $10 million.
by the time we finished that shed, though, and you had slept in enough parking lots, I thought you were looking to put a cotton mat. You're like, "Hey, Chris, I might be able to get caught in there."
That shed I took a peek at, it needs some maintenance, son.
Yeah, it does.
That door handle, why it's corroding away, I don't know.
If you
The
went inside
tri-
there, the floors dropped out because I didn't support it properly.
Oh, I don't know about that,
Yeah.
but I can see it needs a little bit of attention. You might delegate somebody to go out there and, I don't know.
Not many people here swinging.
You know, the trim around that
No friend of the working
door
man.
looks like it got a light coat of primer from
Jimmy's
what?
got hands for counting money, not swinging a hammer.
Yeah, and
Ironically, no money.
That needs a little bit of attention before it gets worse,
I
and then
agree
you
with
got to
that.
replace it.
Jimmy, is there something we haven't covered with you that, like, if you meet Jim Bird Dog Travers out there, please stop and say hello to him. One of the nicest human beings, a guy that has fished up and down this entire coast, and as you said to me the other day,
Fire Island before.
You have fished it.
Yeah, late in the fall.
Yeah.
And I fished Sandy Hook, and I fished down Cape May quite a bit, Delaware, Indian River Inlet, Ocean City Inlet, Cape Charles. I love in the springtime for big red drum because they come up in nothing water, and it's a very short boat ride to get to. And that's where that side scan, I got educated with the side scan on that. I was going in there in the 90s at first with peeler crabs, okay? Well, those guys shedding the peeler crabs are sending those things to New York, and you might as well buy filet mignon when you're buying peeler crabs.
Yeah, because they become the soft shell crab sandwiches and the fried soft shell crabs. But if you can get them for bait, they're a tremendous bait.
Then I figured out, okay, there are all these pound nets. They call them fish weirs up north, pound nets down south, fish weir, whatever. The guys working those nets are kind of dying off, and not many people. And I go in there when they come in at 9 o'clock because I'd fish an afternoon incoming tide. And there was a guy at the boat ramp taking a fee in a hot car, afternoon. But I just drove 200 miles from Washington, D.C. down here. I left at 1, 2 in the morning, and I'm here in a 200-mile drive for the weekend. Oh, I'm going to go get him. Nothing all morning, nothing all morning. All of a sudden, incoming tide in the afternoon. Voop, voop, voop. Well, I got away from the peelers and started going to the Kip to Peak boat ramp and getting fresh menhaden out of the pound nets. $10, a 5-gallon bucket. Oh. It lasted me 2 days, okay? Afternoon, it was clockwork every time. And now there's some guys coming down from Maryland and using side scan and roaming around the perimeter of Fisherman's Island, and they're seeing them. Oh, there they are. Well, I had side scan on my Garmin. Garmin doesn't have the frequency to show the fish. It shows the bottom perfectly. And I'm up in Lynn at night. Big bass up on the beach. I'm doing poor. My buddy's already done. Well, come hop on my boat. There was no current there, and no wind. Just leave the boat. Go. There they are, little ticks on the Hummingbird Helix 10. And wow, cast eel tight. Oh, now they're over there, cast eel tight. Next day, I come into Falmouth. I want a Helix 10, $2,000. Well, we have a demo here. You can buy that discounted. Oh, no problem. There's one up in Plymouth, but nowhere else. Okay, let's sign me up. Ran that card, 15. Go back the next night. All done. Thank you very much. Side scan. That was how many years ago? I forgot how many years ago. And now I could do that side scan working the perimeter. Now this year, I just got the transducer for the bigger boat where I can take the head and just transfer it over to the transducer on the bigger boat. I didn't have that this spring, so I looked around a little bit and was there until the end of April, but it's really a May fishery.
The drum fishery down there?
The red drum fishery at Cape Charles.
So when's the last time you were in Kip to Peak?
Call it April 30th.
Oh, this year?
Yes.
I used to go there in the winter. I would take weekends or skip, cut class. Go down with I worked in a tackle shop in Ocean City. There was a obsessed striper fishing.
All tackle?
Fanatics Bait and Tackle in New Jersey. This obsessive fisherman, striper guy, Mike Decker, would go down and trailer his contender to Kip to Peak. And once in a while I would jump in with him. And I remember it being just kind of like the end of the road. You know, like we would eat at a truck stop. And it was like the one restaurant. Is it still like that? Just kind of like one little motel?
Same thing.
It was there was nothing else to do. You couldn't get in any trouble.
Well, when I first started going there was no development. I was literally looking at properties, but I had no money. but you could buy property cheap. And then all of a sudden, these New York developers developed Cape Charles and started building and building and building and golf course. And, you know, the price, everybody's now a land speculator from $5,000 an acre to, you know, $150,000 for that acre or something like that. And they got out of sight. But it's calmed down. It really hadn't developed that much since the 90s.
It was such a cool. I mean, we were there in the middle of winter too, so nobody wanted to be there at all.
Yeah.
You were just past. It was like chicken farms and pig farms the whole way
Correct.
down, and then we would fish the Bay Bridge Tunnel at night.
Mr. Purdue.
Yeah.
You smell Mr. Purdue as you go by, Mr. Purdue.
Inescapable.
Yes.
But
was
we would fish
chicken,
the shadow
farms?
lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would just
More
see,
of the
and
hog
Tyson too.
farms.
You'd see
but,
Tyson
but the
too.
chicken farms too.
But just the shadow lines. Remember, hundreds and hundreds of stripers just in the Bay Bridge Tunnel shadow lines. And
Yeah.
that was. I have not been done that in
those
20
were the
years.
days. You know, I want that back. I'm still capable of getting on a boat, and I'm still I would like all of that back. And good gosh, that shadow line on the bridge tunnel at night. But it's cold, wicked cold, man. Wicked.
Oh.
That's a term used quite a bit up north, but you got to put on every piece of clothing possible. And then those guys doing the eels off the Kip to Peak, or
Yeah, they fish them under big balloons and suspend them.
all that
And
kind of stuff.
The
And-
tactics have really changed since I was doing that. You know,
Yeah.
guys slow troll the eels. We would fish the Bay Bridge Tunnel at night, and then during the day we would go out and hope to find like the big beehive of gannets and the real big fish beating up bunker off
oh
off
my
the beaches.
gosh, I was in a crappy little boat with a crappy old two-stroke coming out of Point Lookout, Maryland, and it's December. And I'd find these gannets, and you could throw your whole tackle box and be hooked up on big slot bass. But the bite usually died about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I got a buddy up in D.C. Man, you got to get your butt out of bed. No, I get out of bed at 7 o'clock and roll out at 7 o'clock, and he gets there at 9:30. It's all over with, pal. I caught all I wanted for 2 hours or whatnot. It's all over with. Gannets, bunker, big bass. And they roam between Point Lookout and Smith Point. And I picked my days to go down there, of course, in a small boat. But that was phenomenal fishing. Every cast. You take any kind, it doesn't matter what it is.
How is that fishing today now?
There's still gannets and bunker in the late fall, going all the way up to Kent Island, I believe, which is near Annapolis. And but mainly it's from the bottom of the Potomac River down to the bay, opening of the bay. And if you can find the gannets, you're on the fish. You're on the bait, and you're on the bass.
Jim, what you were just saying kind of brings us full circle as far as where we started with the striped bass and just making sure that there's enough fish out there for our kids to fish. Mm-hmm. And you know, when
You've
when
had
I hear
it good,
those,
I've had it good.
Yeah,
I just think I don't want to see it go to, and I think this is what happened. The last fish that were left prior to 85 were some of the big sows. And then they finally shut it down. And then after that 5 years, fish all over the place. I would like to fish all over the place, okay? How that's accomplished, through the slot maybe, through shutting it down maybe, of all killing, I don't know. I'm not a biologist. All I know is what was ain't no more. It's gone with the wind to some degree.
I look at a bird dog. Jimmy's got 3 kids now. His youngest is 6 months. Oldest is 7. I have 6 grandkids now between the ages of 5.5 and 3 months, 4 months. And you know, the older you get, the more you look at it. And Jimmy's been fishing since he could hold a rod. And I think the older you get, the more perspective you get of how important it is to take care of this fishery. The conversation we had the other day when I was driving up the highway, I knew that I could call you at 2:15 in the morning and you'd pick up. I just passed you, but I knew that I could have that conversation.
You just passed the ugliest 23 sea craft, and there's a rationale for that.
I want to hear the
rationale. No one's going to steal that boat, okay? That boat has got the case of the uglies. Now, do I want to eventually sand, fair,
is it still plywood on the side? It's plywood on the side.
Yeah,
of that.
but it's glassed over, so it's tight to the weather.
There you go.
But no one's going to steal that thing.
I can say that's why I knew it was your boat, though.
Yes, that's how you noticed it.
I saw you at 2:15. I was going by you doing, I don't know, 75 to 80. You were doing 55.
Two cops right there at the rotary.
Did I call you and tell you this?
Yes, you said I hadn't hit the rotary.
I called you. I
yet.
said, hey, FYI, there's 2 stadies at the rotary as you're coming up. Not that I had to worry about that truck and about going over 60.
55, 60. I'm not
that way.
Terribly concerned.
Jimmy, it's been a real pleasure, man, having you in. It
Enjoy.
really has, Bird Dog. And
reminisce.
It's we'll have you back again, and I just take care of yourself, take care of your health. It's more important than anything else. I really enjoyed that conversation for the hour up the highway. You blink and you're up in Scituate, and were you going to Scituate or Gloucester?
I went to Scituate, and then I went to Marblehead.
Yeah.
Then I went into the BG buoy at the end of the North Channel of Boston. Then I went into Boston Harbor and found some fish in there and had clear visibility in the harbor.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way out at the BG buoy, it was quarter-mile visibility, but up at Salem, Marblehead, no, it was zero.
We talked from the Falmouth 151 to you hit Scituate, and I think I got into Rhode Island, but I appreciate you coming in. Jimmy, any other questions that you get for Bird Dog, because this is your chance?
No, man, I'm looking forward to seeing it at the Falmouth boat ramp. I know I will. That is, if you fished around Falmouth long enough,
I remember something I bring
to
Chris's attention. That big battleship of a blue regulator that you got. I was heading to tog fishing to Woods Hole.
No, if we're going to go there, then
it's September, and those funny fish are around you, and I kind of go within 50 yards of your boat, and you throw your arms up. And
50 yards for a dog. I could have grabbed the strudel off the back of your.
Strudel. I'm on a mission. I got a half a tank of gas, a half a tank of cigarettes, and we're on a mission from God. Okay, we got to go tog fishing. I'm not going 500 yards out of the way to go to Woods Hole. Did I mention?
So
that?
just run over our funny fish. There were 3 boats here setting up.
I wish in the 90s, when I first found out about Harker's Island, North Carolina, and the false albacore, they put a shame to this albie fishing here.
Yeah.
These are tiny fish. Back in the day, I took a little skiff down to Harker's Island, went in the bite for 2 days because it's blowing its butt off, catching 11-pounders.
I was going to say 11 to 15 pound.
11-pounder average. Nice fish, double the size of what we have here. If they're 5-pounder, it's actually kind of on the large side. And occasionally, an 11-pounder gets caught around here. I said, "Whoa, look at those draggers out there. Look at the gannets. Look at the gulls. Look at the pelican. Oh, I know what that is. That's culling off the. These are shrimpers.
Yeah.
Chasing them, they're picking off everything that falls off the
fish,
side.
the albies that are behind those things
15
are
to
over
20
pounds. They're a 45-minute fight on light tackle. I caught about a half a dozen of those things, and I come back in and beats the boat up inside the hook. It was Joe Bruce from Baltimore. Yeah, come here. I got something for you. Go on out there. He bought me a dinner that night because he caught some of it. But then the next year I'm down there, and every guy knows about it now. Okay? And I'm like...
We ran into them last year, Jimmy. Or 2 years ago, we were out there. We were bluefin tuna fishing, and we were trying to vertical jig on these. And as we dropped down, there was a school of albies.
Yeah.
There was a school of albies 30 feet below us. And at first, you thought they were a school of bluefin. And we would drop down between 30 and 40 feet. There was a layer on the screen. There was a layer of fish, and we're like, holy shit, there's 40-pound bluefin, 30, 40-pound bluefin. and they were all albies, and they were
What
all
size?
big albies.
20.
They were-
Not
no,
big.
no,
No,
15,
they probably max
15,
out around
16.
15 pounds. We
Yeah,
had some
but
nice
that's
ones.
big. That's big.
Yeah,
But we were whacking them, and then if you could get through them, the bluefin were below them. The bluefin were in that 80 to 100 feet, 120 feet, but you had to get through the albies to get to the bluefin.
that North Carolina albie fishery is something it's on my
We're gonna
list.
do that.
Nowhere
Yeah, we're
near
doing
what
that.
it was. As a matter of fact, the first year I was there, Lefty Cray, which actually taught me how to use that goofy rod. Not the best striped bass tool in the toolbox.
In the shed. You fish with Lefty Cray?
He taught me, literally.
That's saying
And
something.
then I have his book as well. And I don't know, is he still alive? I don't know.
He passed away, I
yeah.
think, 4 or 5 years
Oh,
ago.
okay. But that year in the 90s, he flipped pallet, went to Harker's Island and did that. But that show didn't come out until the springtime. Okay? Yeah, wow, cool, nice. Yeah. I literally left here Halloween day, went back to Alexandria, Virginia, and went into the fly shop the next day, 2 a.m, back on the road, 400 miles down into North Carolina. I'm launching the boat at 9:30 in the morning. Phenomenal fishery. Okay.
You know what? I was just down
It's
in
not nearly as good. It's a fraction of what it was.
I was
Down there.
Yes.
What's crazy about that bird dog is that down in Florida, they call them bonito, but
Yeah.
they're what we call albies. They're called bonito, and we'd be down there fishing with Holiday and those guys, and we go out to these these rock piles, and you're getting fish to 15 pounds. But they look at them almost as a nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
They look at them almost as a nuisance, you know.
And
it's,
the fishery doesn't quite scratch the itch. The Florida albie fishing, the way we do it is you roll up to the structure, you throw out a handful of bait, and they're right there. It's just take
Well,
your
you
fly,
got a
turn it
cooking
over.
section in your On the Water magazine.
we do.
Tell me how you make
You-
false albacore edible.
Yeah, nobody's done that.
But anyways, that was a great fishing. I was doing 2
I'm
trips
just glad
a year.
we segued off of me yelling at you when you ran through my pile of funny fish. But the thing I did learn that
Oh,
day.
I didn't realize you
where
went
it
through the
started.
fish.
Oh, he went right through
Oh,
my
I didn't
fish.
realize that was you. I'd have made a special out of the way turn.
He ran right through them. I thought he was good. But the
That
one,
is true. If you're fishing for tog or something else, you don't care about
you
the
don't
albies.
care. But the nice thing is, I learned 2 great tog spots that day because I came in and I saw where you set up camp.
Oh.
And I put a mark on that one. And I put a mark
that
on that
old
one.
MOB. Hit
Oh,
that
yeah,
button.
bam. I put a
Okay,
mark
that's
on you
called
there.
mugging.
I mugged you there, and I mugged you just on that rip where the trawler went
Understand
down.
there are 2 types of fishermen.
Oh, yeah.
There's the digital fisherman and the old school, don't give away granddaddy's fishing spot for nothing. I'm that old school.
But Jim, I really appreciate you coming
Yes,
in
sir.
here. It is. I know there's so many more stories to tell. The fact that you leave Cape Cod as the fishing slows and just kind of follow bites down the coast is
Pretty much just go to North Carolina. And this year, I don't think I'm going there because it's still a little warm in late October. I might head to the mountains of Winchester, Virginia, and they have free campgrounds. I forgot what they're called, part of the wildlife. But go in there. It's primitive, but I got everything in the motor car. I got the generator. I got the air, heat, toilet, you name it, soft bed. I'm thinking about staying there in late October, early November. But early November
I gotta get
is
down.
really...
We got to get down there and fish with you. I know that, and again, we've been at it for 2 hours. And if you know Bird Dog, we could be at it for another 2 hours. And that's the one thing I love about you. And a testimony to Bird Dog, too, is a good friend of mine, Brian Coombs, was down in Morehead City. He said he ran into
Just
you.
talked to him yesterday.
He said he ran into you down there. You guys
Yep.
went out to dinner.
Yeah.
You were out to dinner for 3 hours. And then and
hors
Brian...
d'oeuvres, every hors d'oeuvre on that menu.
On
Brian
that
picked
menu.
up the tab. Thank you, Brian.
And I will tell you that that is just and for Brian to speak as highly as he did about you just speaks volumes about who I've always known Jim Bird Dog Travers is. And if you get a chance to meet him on the ramp, he's on, I don't know how. You could be on the ramp in Falmouth at 6:30, and then someone's going to meet you in Gloucester at 7:15. I don't know how you show up at ramps like that, but you do. And he's a kind man. He's got great stories. And the reason I want to catch him in today, and I talked to Jimmy about bringing him in, was that you just have a great perspective on fishing, both the rec side, the commercial side, and I thought it was interesting to share that story. So it's been a pleasure having you in. It really has,
Thank you,
Bird Dog.
Chris.
And I know this won't be the last time. So thank you, guys.